from Surah 3. And in Surah 3, and you can confirm this if you would like by looking at the study Qur'an. I think it's right at a year old now. If you look at the commentary offered by these numerous Islamic scholars from numerous different traditions on Surah 3, there is a general agreement that at least a major portion of this particular surah is in reference to a encounter that is recorded in the Islamic sources. I've never seen any non-Islamic sources that would confirm the coming of a delegation from the Christians in Najran to have a meeting, and even the study Quran uses the term debate with Muhammad regarding his teachings, especially in regards to Jesus. Now, there are numerous different accountings of this encounter between the Christians from Najran in the Hadith sources and in other commentary sources. I speculated in the book that there seems to be some development, some evolution, even in the Islamic accounting of this. The arguments presented by the Christians, if they're accurate, those Christians didn't know much about their own faith, unfortunately. So it's more likely, anyways, that if there was such an encounter, the Christian side's pretty much been lost, and it's been primarily filtered through Islamic understandings. And there's a lot of ancient Islamic misunderstanding of what Christians believe. I think in the Quran itself, but even leaving that aside, clearly in Ibn Kathir, you will find a great deal of misunderstanding of the Christian perspective. And so I want to look at what the study Quran says, and I'm going to go ahead and give you I actually have it. I'm sending it from the study Quran. And starting at verse 41, he said, "My Lord, appoint for me a sign." He said, "Your sign is that you shall not speak." Okay, verse 42. "And remember when the angel said, 'O Mary, truly God has chosen thee and purified thee and has chosen thee above the women of the worlds.'" I don't know why they chose to use Elizabethan English. I don't know why they chose to use these and thous, but they did, and it's a bummer. Verse 43, ayah 43, "O Mary, be devoutly obedient to thy Lord, prostrate and bow with those who bow. This is from the tidings of the unseen, which we reveal unto thee. And thou wast not with them when they cast their lots to choose who among them would care for Mary. And thou wast not with them when they were disputing." Now, I stopped just for a moment, and it seems to me in the background here, one of the primary issues that I think our Muslim friends need to deal with is the use of sources by the Quran. The use of uninspired sources by the Quran, specifically proto-Gnostic sources. And especially things like the Proto-Evangelium of James. And I think I can make a bit of an argument here about, and thou wast not with them when they cast their lots to choose who among them would care for Mary. That's coming from non-biblical sources, probably from the Proto-Evangelium of James. I think that's a problem. And, of course, if I were just to simply jump up and down and scream and say every Muslim's a demon, like certain people do, you probably wouldn't even think about what I'm saying right now. But since I don't, then maybe you will consider that. Verse 45, "When the angel said, 'O Mary, truly God gives thee glad tidings of a word from him, whose name is the Messiah, Jesus, son of Mary, high honored in this world.'" I think I just found a typo. Unfortunately, to read the text in here, I need to double check that. 45. Nope. High honored in this world. That's weird. And the hereafter. I wonder if that's supposed to be highly. You would think so, but anyway. High honor in this world and the hereafter, and one of those brought nigh. He will speak to people in the cradle and in maturity, and will be among the righteous. Now, there's a connection between Surah 3 and Surah 19. By the way, the conversation, this meeting with the Christians from Najran, there's a couple different dates, but it's it's in the last year of Muhammad's life. And there's a difference of about 1 year between the various sources, but very close to the end of his life. So here, even toward the end of his life, this idea of people speaking, he will speak to the people in the cradle, which you find fulfilled in Surah 19. But that comes from the Arabic infancy gospel, which was only about 150 years old at that time. Again, source critical problems in utilization of the materials from the Qur'an. And we be among the righteous. She said, my Lord, how shall I have a child while no human being has touched me? He said, thus does God create whatsoever he will. When he decrees a thing, he only says to it, be, and it is. And he will teach him the book, wisdom, the Torah, and the gospel. And he will be a messenger to the children of Israel. Truly, I have brought you a sign from your Lord. I will create for you out of clay the shape of a bird. Then I will breathe into it, and it will be a bird by God's leave. And I will heal the blind and the leper and give life to the dead by God's leave. And I will inform you that about what you eat and what you store up in your houses truly is a sign for you if you are believers. And I come confirming that which was before me, the Torah, and to make lawful unto you part of that which was forbidden unto you. And I have come to you with a sign from your Lord, so reverence God and obey me. Truly God is my Lord and your Lord, so worship him. This is a straight path. Now, this is put in quotation marks. There's a lot of stuff. I don't have time today to go into everything that we could go into here. But what is fascinating is Ayah 49, very clearly dependent on the infancy gospel of Thomas. And the infancy gospel of Thomas is not a reliable historical source. It is a proto-Gnostic. It is a proto-Gnostic source, and it's ahistorical. And yet, the author of the Quran shows no discernment in the utilization of the sources that end up in the text itself. So you have a mixture then, the blind, the leper, these are things from the New Testament. In my reading of the Quran, it seems very clear to me that the author of the Quran is going on oral stories that he's heard. There's not a reliance upon written sources. That's why it would be very easy for him to confuse the oral stories that he's heard, not knowing what comes from the New Testament, what doesn't, what the content of the New Testament is, what a gospel is, the gospel versus the gospels. All that type of confusion seems very evident in the pages of the Quran itself, in the misunderstanding of the author as well. And so you have verse 50, very similar to Surah 5, 44 and following. And I come confirm that was before me, the Torah. So Jesus confirms the Torah. Make lawful unto you part of that which was forbidden unto you, which is interesting. Maybe recognizing the looser understanding of the Christians, or just don't have to keep everything that's in the Mosaic law, so on and so forth. Truly God is my Lord and your Lord, so worship him. This is a straight path. This is, as has been properly recognized, the Jesus of the Quran is an argument for monotheism. He's an argument against the author's understanding of what Christians were teaching about Jesus. And so this, to me, if you are a Muslim today that makes arguments based upon skeptical or liberal theology in regards to the reliability of the text of the New Testament, I don't know how you can look at this text and not at least laugh. Because on any redaction criticism, source criticism basis whatsoever, how can you seriously accept that Jesus ever said these words? Because as a Muslim, you do believe that he did. How can you? Mishmash of sources and not the slightest bit of evidence in any source whatsoever until the Qur'an of Jesus saying these words. I mean, any one of you who ever quotes from Bart Ehrman had better at the same time say, by the way, I don't really accept what's found in Surah 3, but you do accept what's found in Surah 3. And so you're being grossly inconsistent. If on the one hand, you quote Bart Ehrman, and on the other hand, you go, not a shred of manuscript evidence, but hey, it was sent down, so we just believe. Okay, but for a long time, I've been saying we need consistency in the standards that we're utilizing here. And it seems to me that this material is particularly susceptible to strong criticism. Historically, in regards to the meeting of the Christians from Najran and the sources that are utilized and how it's put all together and how it's functioning as very clearly a polemical argument here in the middle of Surah 3, which comes toward the end of Muhammad's life. So then it goes on to say, when Jesus sensed disbelief in them, he said, "Who are my helpers unto God?" The apostles said, "We are God's helpers. We believe in God. Bear witness that we are submitters. Our Lord, we believe in what thou hast sent down, and we follow the messenger, so inscribe us among the witnesses." And they plotted, and God is the best of plotters. Now, don't even have time to get into that, but there's all this stuff out there in regards to God being a deceiver and all the rest of this stuff. And when he said, "O Jesus, I shall take thee and raise thee unto me and purify thee of those who disbelieve." Now that raising unto me, boy, again, we can spend a lot of time on this. There's all sorts of questions that could be raised as to what the background of this is, what it means, where it's coming from, how it can be consistently interpreted, all sorts of things like that. But one point just in passing, when I deal with the text of the Qur'an, I attempt to do so in a fair fashion. And it seems that to do so is considered compromise on the part of many. And again, I've been doing this for a long time. Not with the text of the Qur'an. I didn't start studying the issue of Islam until 2006. But I've always tried to be fair with the text of the Book of Mormon, too. That's why there are certain arguments against the Book of Mormon I don't use and have never used, and I can prove it. Remember when the Book of Mormon says Jesus was born at Jerusalem? You've never heard me picking on that because I know that Bethlehem is in the region of Jerusalem, and so you could probably make an argument because I know there are places in the Old Testament text where we have to look at a regional utilization to harmonize texts. And so I don't use an argument against somebody else's book, even if I believe it's a false book. I don't believe Joseph Smith was a true prophet. I don't believe Muhammad was a true prophet either. I can't. But just because you don't believe someone's a true prophet doesn't mean that gives you the right to then misrepresent them and misrepresent what they wrote. And that's what's got me into trouble. Well, it's one of the things that's gotten me into trouble. Is that if you try to be fair, I'm trying to apply exegetical principles to the text of the Qur'an that are consistent with how I deal with the Bible as well. In any ancient text, I want to know what the original author intended to communicate. You do that, and you end up being pilloried on the internet as a Muslim sympathizer and all the rest of this stuff. Because look, there are just a lot of people out there that just don't believe that you should extend any kind of fairness to anyone who isn't a Christian. I reject it. I have to, because I follow him who is the truth. That's all there is to it. You have to be truthful with everything and everybody. That's how it works. Anyway, I'm trying to get to a point here, and we've got stuff to do. Okay. Then unto me is your return. I shall judge between you concerning that wherein you used to differ. And as for those who disbelieve, for the kafirs, I shall punish them with a severe punishment in this world and the hereafter, and they shall have no helpers. And as for those who believe and perform righteous deeds, he shall pay them their rewards in full, and God loves not the wrongdoers. Now, who are the kafirs? Who are the submitters? If this is about that encounter with the Christians from Najran, can we tie this together with Surah 4, Surah 5? This is what we recite unto thee of the signs and the wise reminder. Truly, the likeness of Jesus in the sight of God is that of Adam. He created him from dust and said to him, be, and he was. So here's the direct assertion. In opposition to whatever it was the Christians from Najran were saying in this context, Jesus is a created being like Adam. Then it says, the truth is from thy Lord, so be not among the doubters. So this is supposed to be divine revelation. And to whomsoever disputes with thee over it, after the knowledge that has come unto thee. So here's this revelation from Allah. Jesus is a creature. Once that comes, and if they dispute that, say to them, come, let us call upon our sons and your sons, our women and your women, ourselves and yourselves. Then let us pray earnestly so as to place the curse of God upon those who lie. So the idea here is that Muhammad said to the Christians from Najran, all right, I've received this message from Allah. I've now delivered it to you. And so let's get together and we will call a curse down upon whoever's lying. This is the idea that is being presented. This is indeed the true account. There is no God but God. That's the exact same phrase. Look it up in the Arabic. That's the exact same phrase that keeps occurring after every time the Qur'an says, say not three. And it's directly related to the Shahada. So this is the statement of Islamic monotheism. So the true account is Islamic monotheism. La ilaha illallah. There's only one God. And truly God is the mighty, the wise. And if they turn away, the kafirs, the unbelievers, then God knows well the workers of corruption. Say, O people of the book. Now, the al-Kitab can be Jews or Christians, but in this context, it's clear the Christians. O people of the book. Now, what's fascinating is that this is the section that, remember when the less than forthright ecumenical dialogues were going on only a few years ago, which I criticized, but knowingly and fairly by actually reading the books of the people that were doing it and pointing out the problems of the books. I didn't put pictures of people that were doing that in turbans on the internet. If you call that apologetics, you go for it. This is the text that people were referring to. Oh, people of the book, come to remember what it was called? Common word. A word common between us and you, that we shall worship none but God, shall not associate aught with him, and shall not take another as lords apart from God. Well, that sounds wonderful, but you got to read it in context. It's in the context of challenging the Christians to bring a curse down upon the liars, that the revelation from God is Islamic monotheism, a Unitarian monotheism. And in the people of the book, here the Christians are being called to a word common between us and you, that we shall worship none but God. And that's in the context of saying Jesus is like Adam. He's a created being. Don't worship Jesus. And shall not associate with him. That's the sin of shirk. And shall not take another as lords apart from God. And if they turn away from this call to Unitarian monotheism, then say, bear witness that we are submitters. We are the ones submitting to Allah. O people of the book, al-Kitab, Why do you dispute concerning Abraham, as neither the Torah nor the gospel was sent down until after him? Do you not understand? Behold, you are the very same who dispute concerning that of which you have knowledge. So why do you dispute concerning that of which you have no knowledge? God knows, and you not. That's really not smooth for a modern translation. Abraham was neither Jew nor Christian, but rather was a Hanif, a submitter, and he was not one of the idolaters. So obviously there had been a discussion of the continuation of the faith of Abraham that came out. And then later on, O people of the book, why do you disbelieve in God's signs while you are a witness? O people of the book, why do you confound the truth with falsehood? Here's the point, and unfortunately, running out of time. When I deal with the Qur'an, I attempt to deal with it in a fair and honest fashion. Part of the reason for this is many of my Muslim friends do not deal with the Bible in a fair and honest fashion. And if I'm going to point the finger at them and say, you need to deal with the Bible fairly, I've got three fingers pointing back at myself. It's called consistency. It's called truthfulness. It's called doing what I've been doing for 3 decades when it comes to apologetics.